Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Shaktipa Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadravijam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
We're on page 76, second verse.
Will you help us out, please?
Yes.
Jim, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
You speak I've heard you say it many times to tune up to the teacher. Can you just elaborate what that means a little bit?
In yoga, the mind is a sense organ. And it's a kind of thing that, frankly, we're not likely to be able to experience over Zoom. But when Shankara talks about the qualifications of a fit teacher, he talks about a teacher who is well versed in the scriptures, who's a full knower of the Supreme, who has retired into the Supreme. So the mind has the capacity to revel in the self. This Brahmananda Rasaswad, this tasting of the bliss of Brahman. Now, when the students are sensitive and their minds can tune to the mind of the teacher, they get what Swamiji called a borrowed glory. The teacher can show us the awakened state of mind. Now, if we have the great punya to be able to be in the presence of a great master, you can feel the Shakti. And I have various words I use: the thunder of silence, the profound emptiness. It's both empty of all form, yet so full of presence. It's what the Christians used to call the odor of sanctity. But it's very real. It's very real. Was that understandable to you, Scott?
Yes, thank you.
And that sense of presence has several factors. It's a gestalt. It has to do with how deeply the teacher can abide in the self. It has to do with the openness of the student, has to do with perhaps how we're working the knowledge with the scripture. Some of it also has to do with karma. So, for example, when I was around Swamiji, man, in the beginning, it was like being on LSD because I had such a strong karmic connection with the guy. And then I would go down to the Siddha Yoga ashram and I'd see Baba Muktananda. Sure, he was a great Mahatma, but nothing. I didn't feel anything with him. I met Swami Dayananda, very nice man, but nothing there for me. Antithetically, in 2015, when I went to Jaipur and I got a chance to get the darshan from Bhuvaneshwarananda, my friend Dave Dutt's guru, oh, this guy's deep. And if the student can open, you can go where the teacher goes. And Swamiji used to say, meet me there. What is this state? Is it samadhi? Yes. But again, it's not necessarily something we're going to be able to get through a book or through YouTube. We can get data. But that added grace is relational. Very good question. Now, there's a process. In the beginning, when I met Swamiji, oh God, this guy's in the ozone someplace. And oh, he was so brilliant. And it was Guruji, it was Swamiji. And then he would talk about how you can tune in to me wherever I am in the world. So I'd be in San Francisco, and all I had to do was think of him. My mind would go there. And then it became clear that he wanted us to get established in that for ourselves. Finally, I realized it was all a trick to teach us that deep absorption in the self, that's my self nature. And I finally found out who the Guru was. Wasn't the little man with the orange robes. All right, any other questions on this? And in Shankara's qualifications of a fit student, when he talks about Shraddha, faith, there's the outer understanding of faith. I have faith that if I turn the switch on the lamp will turn on. I have faith that if I put gas in the car will start. So we have to have faith in the scriptures, faith that the teacher can point out the path and the goal to us. But the deeper meaning of Shraddha is we can go where the teacher's mind goes. It's how we're able to understand poetry. And in the beginning class, I'll use the example, if you've gone out to Ocean Beach on a beautiful spring day and the sky is clear and the waves are crashing on the ocean shore, and you just smell that very fresh scent that's in the air in San Francisco. I think it's ozone coming off the ocean, but it's so exhilarating. And then I see in people's faces that they have gone to where my mind went. They can find a comparable place in themselves. Our capacity to do that is our Shraddha. That's our faith. And Shankara says it's by this means alone that the truth is made evident to us. Any other questions on this?
No,
All right.
thank you very much.
Very good question. Now, I have been told that some people on Zoom, they do get inspired. Their minds do get tuned up. I don't know, I'm not with you. You know, your little faces and boxes to me. All right, let's go into our scripture.
Samakalabhyasa bhave badhakama ekeka sho nishevyante yadyete chira yatnaha yatnataha tan siddhim prachanti matraha sankalita eva. He describes how it impedes the result if it is not practiced together thus. If they are practiced one at a time, even for a long time with arduous efforts, they do not yield result, even as the mantras, scriptural formulas, fail to produce results if muttered piecemeal and at an interval.
So the idea is these are the practices that in a prior verse he's told us are necessary. Can you back up and do you recall what the elements were? I can't remember.
Knowledge of the truth, annihilation of the mind, and the effacement of the impressions of latent desires are the means of Jivan Mukti.
Did you all hear that? Say them again, slowly and out loud.
Knowledge of the truth, annihilation of the mind, and the effacement of the impressions of the latent desires are the means of Jivan Mukti.
So it's not that these are to be done in a sequence. We work on them all, and they all must be accomplished. And if we don't accomplish them all, then being sthita prajna, being a person of steady wisdom, is not accomplished. Next one.
Yatha sandhyavan marjane saha vinit yuktanam apohishtha ityadinam tis srinam mricham madhye pratidina me kaikasya shichaha pathe shastriyanushtanam na siddhyati yatha va shangamantrana me kaika mantrena na siddhi yatha va loke shakasupauda na diname kaikena na bhojana siddhi tadvat chirabhyasasya prayojanama. The three Rik matras, beginning with apohistha, O waters, you are, etc., are prescribed for recitation during the purification of oneself with water, which is a part of the twilight religious acts. If, instead of reciting all the three mantras, a day is recited, the scriptural observance does not succeed. Or a mantra with 6 limbs will not produce results if used one part at a time with interval. Or in the mundane matters, such as dinner, if only one course, i.e., either vegetable or soup or rice, is served instead of all of them together, the purpose is not served. The necessity of prolonged practice is described thus.
Yes. So he says here, referring to a ritual. If you only do part of the mantra, then take a break, come back and then do another part of the mantra, then it's not efficacious. Or, okay, I'm going to make some dal, and I cooked the, what do they call the tempering tadka?
Tadka,
yeah. But I've not boiled the lentils. It's not effective. So here, what he's saying is all 3 elements. Knowledge, manonasha, the destruction of the mind, and the effacement of all of the latent tendencies, the vasanas. All of it together must be practiced. These are the 3 elements. Any thoughts on this? Going on.
Shibhireteshchirabhyaster hridaya granthayo drishta drira nishankameva dhruyanti visashchedad guna iva iti. By prolonged practice of these 3 means, the firm fetters of the heart are undoubtedly broken, just as the threads of lotus in its stalk when cut.
So practically speaking, I have students, and they're sincere. They come to class. They may have a very thorough understanding of the Vedanta, but they don't meditate. And they certainly are not at all interested in giving up their attachments to the world. And then they wonder why their suffering persists. So just indirect knowledge, paroksha jnanam, is not enough. Or there's another state. It's very common to the Raja yogis. They may do their asana, they may do their pranayama, they may spend several hours a day in practice and studying scripture, but have not given up their attachment to the world. Still no sthita pragya, steady wisdom. Others take the path of extreme asceticism. Lots and lots of denial. But they have no clear understanding. And they've not quietened the mind. Again, no moksha. Just from asceticism. So we need all 3, he says. And I agree with him. Next one.
तस्यैव व्यतिरेकमाह जन्मान्तरशताभ्यस्ता रामसंसारसंस्थितिः सा चिराभ्यासयोगेन विना न क्षीयते क्वचित् इति. This is shown contrariwise thus. The appearance of the world, O Rama, is due to its being experienced through hundreds of births, and without prolonged practice of yoga, it can nowhere be dissolved.
Yes, here I suspect he's quoting Yoga Vasishta. But the appearance of the world is like a very long and very vivid dream. Now, when we talk about the effacement or the destruction of the phenomenal world, there are two ways to interpret a verse like this. The first is a reference to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So, like deep sleep, the world is effaced for you every night. What world do you see at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're sound asleep? Nothing. No ego, no problems, no world. Unlike deep sleep, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you are fully aware. Ignorance has been removed as well. But the other meaning of a verse like this, which I think is more valuable, when a person's driving through the desert and in ignorance, they see what looks like water, their senses report water, and their knowledge is water. When they discern that it's a mirage, their senses continue to report water, but through deep understanding, they have destroyed the water. Their knowledge is sand. So also, when the Jivan Mukta sees the phenomenal world, her knowledge is Nama Satyam Jagat Mithya. World of names and forms, seen but not. Next verse.
न केवलमेकैकाभ्यासे फलाभावः किन्तु तत्स्वरूपमपि न सिद्ध्यतीत्याह तत्त्वज्ञानं मनोनाशो वासनाक्षय एव च मिथः कारणतां गत्वा दुःसाधानि स्थितानि हि इति. Attempted severally, these means not only do not produce the results, they are even impossible to be accomplished. So he says thus: the knowledge of the truth, the dissolution of the mind, and the effacement of the latent desires, these three means, being mutually related as cause and effect, make it all the more difficult to attain.
Yes. So they are all interdependent. Now, in Yoga Vasishta, Vasishta describes the mind as being caused by three fundamental ideas. I think I'm a person. In the world of name and form, I have a goal, and I have obligatory actions. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. Those are the three ideas that we need to remove. So simple. Easy to say, not necessarily easy to accomplish. But we need to understand this manonasha, this destruction of the mind, is not a state of enfeeblement. It's not, doesn't mean that at all. It's the removal of these deep ideas that we're talking about. I think I'm a person, I've got a goal, and I have to struggle. Next verse.
त्रयाणामेतेषां मध्ये द्वयोर्मेलनेन श्रीणि द्वन्द्वानि भवन्ति तत्र मनोनाशा वासनाक्षय द्वन्द्वस्यान्योन्यकारणत्वं व्यतिरेकमुखेनः यावद्विलीनं न मनो न तावद्वासनाक्षयः न क्षीणा वासना यावत्त्वावचित्तं न शाम्यते. Coupled mutually, 3 pairs are derived from these means. Among them, the pair consisting of the dissolution of the mind and the effacement of impressions has mutual causal relation, which is being described here negatively thus. Until the mind is dissolved, there cannot be effacement of the latent impressions. Until the latent impressions are not effaced, the mind does not dissolve.
Yes. So, what is the cause of the continued existence of the mind? Meaning these 3 ideas that I talked about: attachment and identification. So if we practice this intense introversion, this tuning up that we talked about before class, we keep letting go of the attachments, letting go of the attachments, letting go of the identification. Swamiji used to use an example. Imagine a helium or hydrogen balloon tied down by hundreds of little silk threads. Each one is a vasana. Each one is an attachment. Snip, 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 snip. Only one thread is necessary to keep the balloon tethered. The balloon is Jiva Bhavana, my experience that I'm a person. The last thread is snipped. What happens to the balloon? It soars up and expands and expands and expands, and eventually it pops. So when the last vasana is renounced, individual sense of self is annihilated. You're not a person anymore. In fact, you see that you never were. Well, how will I know if it happens? It's absolutely self-validating. You still have doubt, you probably haven't had a deep nirvikalpa. And if you have, the Buddha himself could say, oh, you're not enlightened yet. He'd say, thank you, sir. I know who I am. No doubts. Next one.
प्रदीप ज्वाला संतान वद वृत्ति संतान रूपेण परिणममानमन्तः कर्ण द्रव्यं मननात्मकत्वान्मनन् इत्युच्यते। तस्य नाशो नाम वृत्तिरूप परिणामं परित्यज्य निरुद्धत्वाकारेण परिणामः। तथा च पतञ्जलि योगशास्त्रे सूत्रयामास। व्युत्थान निरोध संस्कार प्रादुर्भावो निरोध क्षण नितानवयो निरोध परिणामः इति। The internal sense organs, taking the form of a series of mental modifications, like the series of the flames of a lamp, is called the mind for its mental functions. The dissolution of it means its giving up the changes in the form of transformations and remaining in the form of controlling transformations, stopped from taking further modification. Patanjali has formulated it thus in the Yoga Sutras. When the mental modification subsides and the restraining impression arises, i.e., the mind being withheld from further transformation, this moment of cessation of transformation, when linked up with the mind, is called transformation into cessation.
So here he's quoting Yoga Sutra. And the idea here is, as you've gone through these 8 limbs, the preparatory ones, the yamas and niyamas, then asana to get the body so you don't have to think about the body. Also works on the nervous system. Then with pranayama, understanding that there's a link between the flow of thought and the movement of the prana. This is called udana. It's one of the panchavayu, the 5 subtle airs. So what happens when the last thought is thoughted before the next thought starts thoughting? We've done our practice of sense withdrawal. We've developed some concentration, some single pointedness of mind. Then with the radical reversal of the attentive faculty, who am I? And I'm very fond of the image that Gaudapada uses in the 4th chapter of the Mandukya Karika, the alata shanti, the quenching of the firebrand. So I updated into modern times the circle and the sparkler. So if you have a sparkler on Diwali or 4th of July, and you make a circle with the sparkler, what the metaphor is, the moving tip of the sparkler is the movement of thought. And by here, it can be a thought, a feeling, a sense perception. They're all just vrittis. But when they start to move, this thing called a mind shows up. And unlike the circle and the sparkler, this mind has enormous power to illumine a apparent phenomenal world, to give the impression of me, the individual, with my needs, my desires, my aversions. All of it is based on the movement of the vrittis. So in the second sutra that begins Patanjali's great work, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the restraining of the chitta, the mind stuff, from forming vrittis. The Raja Yogis do it through pranayama. The Jnana Yogis do it through self-inquiry. But listen carefully. What holds the mind in place is attachment, identification. So we have to do the elimination of the vasanas, as well as endeavoring to quieten the mind. Next one.
Vyuthana sanskara abhibhuyante nirodha sanskaraha pradurbhavanti nirodha yuktaha kshanashchittenanviyate so ayam manonasha ityavagantavyam. When the impressions of transformation are neutralized, when the impressions of control appear, and the moment of control is connected with the mind, this state is to be known as the dissolution of the mind.
Meaning, just a little bit of attention. I've been able to bring the mind at least into thinness, if not stop altogether. And again, back to our discussion before class. I would have doubts and concerns, and what about this, and what about that? And I would be in Swamiji's presence, and I would tune to him. My mind would just stop. And I didn't get answers to my doubts. The doubter went away. Next
one. Puramarsh mantarena sahasotpadyamanasya krodhadir vritti visheshasya hetushchittagataha sanskaro vasana purvapurvabhyasena chitte vasyamanatvat. The mental transformation denoting anger or the like, suddenly taking place without giving thought to the past or the future, is due to the latent impressions of the mind, which is also known as vasana, desire left behind by the previous experiences in the mind, just as a piece of cloth in contact with flour retains the fragrance.
Yes. So the root for vasana, vasati, means to linger or to dwell overnight. And the classic imagery is like someone wearing perfume and they leave the room and the fragrance is left. Or here you take a cloth and you soak it in a tincture of a flower fragrance. And when it dries, it maintains the fragrance. So you and I walk through the world, and then some event happens, and I get angry. Why am I angry? Listen carefully. It is never outside. It's attachment. It's expectation. My need to control. My deep belief. Getting what I want will make me happy. Anger is thwarted desire, unmet expectation. Why am I reacting to this and not to that? Vasana. That's all it is. It's incredibly mechanical. And it's so easy. Who got pissed off this week? Tell me this is the first time you felt this way. Tell me it's the first time you've had an experience like this. Tell me that it's even with a different person. Aren't you tired of it? Aren't you tired of it? And ego says, control the other person. Yoga says, how's that working out for you? Let it go. Next verse.
Tasyascha vasanayaha kshayo nama vivekajanyayam shanti dantya dishuddha vasanayam dridhayam satyapi bahya nimitte krodhatyunuktihi. The effacement of this vasana means non-production of anger, etc., even in the presence of an external cause. This happens when the pure impressions, such as self-restraint and the like, which are brought about by discrimination, are engraved.
Yes. So, my discrimination, the knowledge portion. The cause of my disturbance is attachment, identification. I'm going to practice vairagya, that desire to give up attachment and identification. Through viveka, Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is unreal. And the Lord is so efficient. She will bring by the perfect event, perfect people to poke in our vasana. So we get all these opportunities for practice. Until we quit reacting. Then, after that, very frequently, the circumstance doesn't arise anymore. But if it does arise, it no longer has the power to agitate. This is the practice, informed by understanding, by knowledge. Now, Swamiji would frequently poke at people. If they had an attachment, he'd just leave them. I remember a story where there was this one woman and she wanted Swamiji to stay with her family when he was at a camp. He said, yes, I'll stay with you. And then said, yes, but maybe I should stay in a hotel closer to the venue. She was all upset. But I really would like to stay with you. She was all happy with it. Well, maybe I'll stay in the hotel. And she was sad. And this kept going back and forth. And she kept reacting. To finally she got what he was driving at. And she just let it all go. Whatever you want, Swamiji. I'll stay. But remember, Guru appears in three places. There's the external Guru. Swamiji always used to say the external Guru is a temporary psychological device. Guru shows up in the circumstances of life. If you got disturbed this week, tell me this is the first time this event has happened. When are you going to wake up and let it go? Third Guru speaks to us as our deep intuition. Our guidance. Any thoughts on this? Repeat the slogan I talk about so frequently. It's a spiritual axiom that if I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha, the affliction, the defilement. It's axiomatic. well, don't I have a right to be angry if someone's abusive or cheats me? We don't talk about rights in yoga. I don't even know if there's a Sanskrit word for it. I have news for you. The world isn't fair. The world and its people are frequently very wrong, according to my understanding. But we're never successful in controlling other people, controlling the world. We can work for justice and righteousness. But it's ultimately an inside job. It's one of the hardest things for yogis to learn. This idea that I'm at the effect of other people, of circumstances. Nobody has the power to make me feel anything. Of course, I'm not powerful enough to make anybody else feel anything either. Next verse.
Tatra manonasha bhave vrittishu shutva manasu kadachit bahya nimittena krodhathu pattir nasti vasanakshayah akshirnayam tu vasanayam tatheva vrityutpaddanasti manonashaha. Then, if the mind remains undissolved, the transformations would continue to take place, and sometime or other, anger and the like would arise, caused by external stimulus. So, no effacement of vasana. Likewise, if the vasana is not effaced, transformation would take place, so no dissolution of the mind.
Yes. So it seems like an impossible situation. Without the destruction of the mind, we don't have the effacement of vasana. Without the effacement of vasana, we don't have destruction of the mind. Are we screwed? Is it an impossibility? Let's see what he says.
Tattvajnana manonashayoha paraspara karana tvam vyatireka mukhirna yavanna tattva vijnanam tavachitta shamaha kutaha yavanna chittopashamo na tavat tattvavedana danama iti. Knowledge of the reality and the disillusion of the mind have mutual causal relation, which is now being described in a negative way thus. Until there is knowledge of reality, how can the mind be calm? The knowledge of reality cannot arise till the mind is not calm.
So, as long as I do not know that I am Brahman, I'm going to think I'm a person. As long as I think I'm a person, the mind will appear real and will appear problematic. This is what the Buddhists call dependent origination. The personal sense of self, a phenomenal world that seems real, arise together. They're dependent. Why does the personal sense of self arise? Because of the non-apprehension of the truth, of the knowledge that I am Brahman. So the two are mutually dependent. Going on.
Idam sarvamatmeva pratiyamanam tu rupa rasadikam jagan mayamayam na tveta tvastuto asti iti nishchayasta tvagyanam tasyanutvatto ruparasadi vishayanam sadbhave sati tadgocharichittavrittayo na nirvarayitum shakyante yatha prakshipyamane shvinadhanadishu vahinjvala na nivaryate tadvat asati chittopashame vritti bhirgrihya maneshu rupadishu neha nanasti kinchana iti shruteha yajamanaha prastaraha ityaderiva pratyakshavirodha shankaya brahma dvitiyam ityetadrishastattvavishchayo nodiyat. All this is verily the Atman. The apparent world, beginning with the form, taste, and the like, is illusory. It is not really existent. Such conviction is the knowledge of the truth. In the absence of such knowledge, and with the presence of the sense objects such as form, taste, and the like, mental transformations in their shapes cannot be stopped, just as by adding fuel to fire, the flames cannot be stopped. In the absence of mental calm, forms, taste, etc., will be experienced through the transformations of the mind, and consequently, doubt will arise about the verity of such Shruti texts as, there is no duality in this whatsoever, from Kathopanishad, just as in the case of the text, the sacrificial seat made of sacred grass, kusha, is the sacrificer, as they both go against the objective experience. So, the conviction of Brahman is one without a second will never arise.
So here he is using the idea that the knowledge, I am Brahman, and that this world is Brahman, and that the names and forms, though seen, are mithya, illusory, vaitadya, false. This firm knowledge allows me to see the world of name and form, and it doesn't have the power to disturb me. That's the point he's getting at. This is what knowledge bestows on us. But if I do not know Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is verily Brahma, then I think I'm a person. The world is real. And it's people places, things, and conditions are inherently joy-giving and misery-producing, then I'm caught in the karma chakra, the wheel of action, samsara, the world of becoming, of suffering. Dukkha, satya, the truth of suffering. Just like if you take a small child to the movie and it's a scary movie, the child has lost its capacity to discriminate and thinks the images on the screen are real. She gets terrified. The grown up, she can go into the movie and, oh, that was really a great movie. I loved it when the vampires ate everybody. It's not scary. Or even if it is on the surface scary, there's an enjoyment because of the deep knowledge. It's just a movie. Nobody really gets hurt. Next one.
Vasanakshaya tattva jnanayoha paraspara karanatvam vyatireka mukhenaha. The mutual causal relation between the effacement of the impressions and knowledge of the truth is being described contrariwise thus.
So now he's talking about the third mutual causation between the destruction of the vasanas and knowledge itself. Going on.
Yavanna vasananashastavattva tvagamaha kutaha yavanna tattva sampraptirna tavadvasanakshayaha iti. Until the impressions are wiped out, how can there arise knowledge? Until the attainment of knowledge, there cannot be wiping out of the impressions.
Yes. Again, this apparent mutual dependence, which results in an absolute contradiction in terms. So again, let's go deeper into our understanding of vasana. We've repeated this many times. Vasana has two powers, avarana shakti, vikshepa shakti cha, veiling power and projecting power. The veiling power is of the nature of the non-apprehension of the self. Second power, the projecting power, projects the sense of individuality, projects the notion of a phenomenal world, projects internally a reaction to it, which usually, almost always, includes struggle. Varana Shakti, veiling power, Vikshepa Shakti, agitating or projecting power. Shankara will say in Viveka Chudamani, it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation. All right, let's do one more.
Krodhadi vasana swanashtasu shamadamadi sadhana bhavana tattvajnana muddeti agyate द्वितीय ब्रह्म तत्त्वे क्रोधादि निमित्तस्य सत्यत्व प्रमाण पायान वासना क्षीयते यथोक्तानां त्रयाणां द्वन्द्वान्मन्योन्य कारणत्वमन्वयमुखेन वयमुदाहरामः. If the latent impressions of anger and the like remain uneffaced, there cannot arise the knowledge of the truth, because of the absence of the means, such as self-restraint and the like. Without the realization of Brahman as ultimate reality without a second, the illusory reality of the causes of anger and the like is not sublated. Hence, no effacement of vasana is possible.
So again, go ahead.
We are now going to describe with examples the mutual causal relation of the aforesaid three pairs in a positive way.
Okay, so we will now get into, I suspect, the solution to this conundrum, this apparently hopeless situation that we have in these three dimensions of mutual dependence, the inability somehow to get out. So we'll quit here and take this up next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.